Okay, so here's going to be episode 1, and I'm just going to kind of give you an update of where I'm at because I've been doing stuff while I get things together for the V8 swap. So for those that don't know, I am going to be performing a V8 swap on my 2000. I'm trying to get used to this gimbal thing. So I have a 2019 Chevy Colorado ZR2. It has the 3.6 liter V6. The reason why I'm doing this swap is I kind of got a little careless and went into some mud that was a tad bit too deep. It really wasn't that deep. I was down probably to about here on just the driver's side. So I was kind of angled. Probably up to about right here on the driver's side, and probably down in here for the passenger side because I was kind of angled like this into the hole. And my intake ended up being completely dry. It still looks pretty dry now. I've taken it apart to check it. I've checked the entire intake hose, and there's not a speck of mud or water that was in it to basically give me a pathway of how the mud got into my oil. But as you can see here, this was the oil filter, and there is just a lot of mud in there. Not entirely sure how it got in there, but I'll find that out once I yank this bad boy out. I will be doing a video of the breakdown of this engine to see if we can figure out how it got in, and we'll also look at the damage that it did. So to get you up to speed, I did attempt to flush this oil out. I drained the oil, pulled the filter, put fresh oil in, idled it for a little bit. The truck does run, it's not running very well, and I get a lot of crankshaft and camshaft position codes. It will idle, which it didn't do at the trail. It would not idle at all. I had to sit about 2,000, 2,500 just to keep the engine running. But now I've got it to where it will actually idle, but you can kind of hear a slight misfire. The oil pressure is kind of all over the place. Sometimes when I run it, it's low at idle, goes up when you rev it like it should, and sometimes it's high. So I think the mud got in there and blocked some oil passageways. Maybe did some damage to the pump, but we'll figure that out. That'll be probably towards the end of my video series here. My intent is to do basically a whole video series of documenting kind of along the way of the actual swap. At the end, I'll do a full cost breakdown of what I paid. I'm modding the V8 that I'm putting in here, so I will do a breakdown of what I paid for the full swap and what is the minimum required, meaning that I'll be taking out some of those performance parts to kind of give you a breakdown of what it would minimally cost to do the swap. Right now I haven't really done much to the truck except clean it. It doesn't look like it, but it was actually a lot worse than this. I've cleaned it. I've taken the front bumper off. I've got a CBI half bumper. I'll be pulling that. I'll be pulling the winch out. I've got to clean. The line looks clean now, but the whole underside of it's pretty bad. So I'll be pulling the line, pulling the wiring for it. I'll probably, since I'll be doing a bunch of stuff, I'm probably going to move my control box into the under the hood. One of the issues, I actually had to go into the mud because the entire winch was fully submerged, and trying to find the clutch, find the control box and everything. I'll still have to do the clutch if I do this again, which I do not plan on going into the mud like that again. But it would be nice to have the control box up here, so I will be doing that along the way. I've also removed the fender liners, just to kind of give me a little bit of clearance, and I wanted to clean this insulation piece here. Was completely covered in mud. All of this was completely covered with mud. I went ahead and cleaned all that. I do not run the factory DSSV spool valves anymore. I had a front one leak, so I went with King's last year. Probably around May, I think I put these on. So I'm running King extended with Peak uppers with uniballs, Peak tie rod sleeves. I do have a diff drop. Let me see if I can get a good angle of that. You can kind of see it back there in the back. But I am running a diff drop. Let's go to the back here. I did take the fender liners out of the rear as well to clean. So this has all been nice and cleaned. It's a little dark in here. Let me see if I got the light. Yeah, so I've cleaned. I've running Kings in the rear as well. I do run an add a leaf. You can see the extra leaf there. When I'm done with this swap, I actually ordered a couple parts before I went into the mud, so I will be installing those. You'll notice I don't have the factory sliders. I've sold those because I have a set of SOS sliders, frame bolt-on, that I will be installing towards the end. I'll probably video that as well, but I will be putting those on. I had ordered those before this ordeal, and I also had ordered Devers, so I will have Dever leafs on the rear. That'll be at the end of this project as well. Okay, I'm running a Diamondback split hard tonneau cover. It locks. I'd opened it up for you, but that's where my bumper and my wheel well liners are. Let's see what else. I'm running some extreme LED ditch lights, side shooters. So there's 3 LEDs that shoot off to the sides, 6 that go up front. I do have 33s. I'm running Yokohama Geolanders. Let me see if I can get this to... There we go. Okay, so I'm running Yokohama Geolanders with 1552. I believe they're Turbomac HDs. I always get those in the Tarmac. No, it is Turbomac HDs. I also have my daily is a Fiesta ST, so I've actually been looking at a lot of 52 or 1552 wheels because they make a lot for the Fiesta as well. But these are the Tarmac HDs. They're alright. I'm not a big fan of them. I love the way they look, but as you could see, they don't have any type of protection rings. You can't get them. And I off-road this thing, so you could see where I've basically stripped all the paint on the very edge. This wheel is actually not that bad. Okay, here's the rear, or here's the other front. I've actually chunked that one up pretty good. Not too bad though. I mean, definitely could be worse, but I'll run these for a while, and then maybe eventually I'd like to go to possibly a full bead lock. This is not my daily driver. Like I said, I have this I drive this little baby jelly bean car, which is a lot of fun. Alright, so that's pretty much the truck as it sits right now. I don't think there's really much else to go over for that because I really haven't touched it yet. This is kind of a first episode, this is what I'm going to do kind of thing. So let's go over to the actual motor that I'll be swapping in. This is a 5.3 liter V8 from a Silverado. I've got some stuff kind of covered up. I just did a cam swap on it about 2 weeks ago. I'm running a GPI Stage 1 high lift truck cam. The reason why I only went with a Stage 1 is the Stage 1 allows you to run the stock torque converter, and it still keeps down low torque and power, which is what I kind of want for off-roading. I don't want to move the power band too high up, which is what their higher stage cams do. I've kind of just got this protected for now because I'm done with the cam swap. I also am running a so I already showed you the top cam sprocket. I did a put a phaser block in there. Couldn't think of the word there. I did go ahead and clean it, so it's a lot cleaner than what it was. I bought this motor with 18,000 miles on it, so it's still pretty good low mileage. It wasn't an accident, the vehicle it came from, so I had a lot of glass that was on top of the valley cover, so I had to break it down for the cam swap, so I figured I might as well kind of clean everything and get it nice and fresh. This is kind of my parts pile, valve covers, injector, fuel rails. I'll be cleaning those probably tomorrow. And I just got done rebuilding my head today, so with the Stage 1 cam I did a bunch of other kind of mild upgrades. I'm running a dual spring Brian Tooley Racing valve springs, the titanium retainers and everything. Didn't do any head work. I talked to GPI about that, and because I wanted a more low-end torque, low-end power kind of power band because of off-roading, they did not recommend that I do any type of head work, and it also saves me a ton of money because I think their head work was about $2,000, and any money saved is definitely good. So I've pretty much got these ready. They're ready to go back on the engine, which I'll probably do tomorrow. I went with, so I've got some hardened GPI push rods that I'll be installing. I don't have the stock ones out here, but I will be going with hardened push rods. I did Chevy Performance. I believe they're the Cadillac. They call them the Cadillac lifters. They're not the ones. Let me see if I can pull one out. So I've got a lot of stuff kind of bathing in oil in here. So I'll pull out. I'm running CHE trunnion upgrade with snap rings, brass bushings. Got those been soaking in oil for a while. Got the, with the cam upgrade you have to install a lash cap on the fuel lifter. For those that don't know, the 5.3 I'm sorry, so I'm running the L83 5.3. I didn't really specify that when I was showing the engine, but the 5.3 is from a 2018 Silverado. It runs a high pressure fuel pump. It's direct injected, just like the Colorado 3.5 or 3.6, sorry. So when you do a cam upgrade, so you can see the cam in there with some assembly lube on it, they actually will do a 32% increase on the high pressure fuel pump. So in order to get that, because of the way they have to grind the lobe, they end up you end up having to install a lash cap on that lifter to give you the rest of the 32%. So I have that installed already. I have, let's see what else I've done. I have the lifter soaking in oil in another container. I'll show more of that probably tomorrow when I put the heads on. My intent tomorrow is to install the lifter trays, which are right there, install the lifters. I'm going to put one head on. You saw this Play-Doh earlier. I just want to double check my valve to piston clearance, so I'll do that, even though it still has some of the variable valve timing in it. The blockout plate, I forget how many degrees it eliminates from that, but it will eliminate some of the variable valve timing to help with piston to valve clearance, but I'll just verify with a couple spins just to make sure. I'm pretty sure I got it timed right. We'll see. I've got an oil pan coming. I haven't ordered it yet. For those that don't know, this is the Silverado oil pan for the 5.3. It will not work in the V8 swap. It will hit the front diff, and I believe it even hits the power steering. So the research I've done, the 5.3 that's been in a Colorado that was two-wheel drive ended up having to run a Corvette oil pan. I believe the Holley makes one that I believe works with the two-wheel drive as well. Don't quote me on that, but I've got one coming from a local place. It's a hot rod shop. They sell one that I think the dimensions that I've measured will work. We'll find out along the way. The 5.3 comes with a belt-driven vacuum pump. I've deleted that, so you could see I've plugged the oil ports for that with factory GM plugs, because I believe those come on the Camaro 2016 plus Camaros. I'll have the part numbers and everything once I do a final, video of everything that I've done. I will go over all the part numbers. I'm keeping track in spreadsheets, but I've ran those plugs. They're installed with thread sealer because that was where the air conditioning compressor will go. I'm planning on running the Camaro 2016 plus Camaro accessories on this. So the motor will essentially be the L83, and the front accessories will be 2016 plus Camaro. So I'll have AC compressor down here. The alternator will be down here. I know people are probably gonna give me some crap about that, but the whole reason for that is I want the accessories to be very, very close in the same proximity as what they are on the factory Colorado engine. That way, running new lines, because I will have to run new AC lines, new radiator lines, new heater, the lines that come off the water pump that go to the heater core. They're pretty close to where the factory Colorado stuff is, so it will require less building of lines, which is already going to be a pain. So figured to make things easier. Plus, because of this ordeal, I do not plan to do any mud holes in the future. So I'm not essentially too worried about the alternator placement. Those that haven't seen my other video, I have another video on my channel that shows removing the alternator from the factory motor, and I kind of break down towards the end of that video what exactly happens when you get mud in that alternator. So I'm pretty confident that if I do have issues with the alternator again, I will be able to fix it because I've done it before. Luckily with this front accessories, the alternator was the only thing I did not have to purchase. The one that came on the L83 is the same one that comes on the Camaro. I did have to buy everything else. The water pump, all the brackets, the bolts, and the AC compressor plus the bracket. I'll show you some of that. Exhaust, I have not really decided what I'm going to do yet. I'm debating whether on keeping keeping the L83 factory manifolds, which are pretty similar to shorty headers. I've got one down here. I can't really see it because of the light. I'll show that in a future video, but I'm still debating on running that or looking up some other type of shorty headers. I pretty much got to just see what kind of clearances I have. I do not believe long tubes would work, at least anything off the shelf, because of the front drive shaft clearance. We'll see once I get there. The headers will be installed on the vehicle, so I'll get to that in a future video. We'll go over here to the, so this is still the factory wiring harness just kind of laying on here. My gimbal's going a little crazy. So I'm running a 8L90 from a Silverado, 8-speed, so everything should be pretty similar to the Colorado ZR2 platform already. The only difference is I think 1 through 4, I believe it's 1 through 4 on the 8L90 has different gearing than the AL45 that comes in the factory Colorado. I believe the last 4, I know the last kind of your highway gears are the same gearing, so it should drive pretty close to what the factory Colorado runs. And I will be running a Silverado transfer case. Let me get my sweatshirt out of the way. That comes on the 5.3 Silverado. I really haven't dug too much into that. My understanding is the factory ZR2 Colorado drive shaft will work with this setup, but I will be going to steel front and rears for off-roading, so I will end up with some custom ones anyways, so I'm not really too worried about that, but I will install the factory one just to kind of verify that it does work. The fronts I have not really looked into because I was going custom anyways. For those that don't know, that is not how the factory Colorado drive shaft goes into the transfer case, so it is definitely completely different. So that kind of hits on a little update on what's going to occur, where the swap is currently at. I did get my engine mounts, so I actually bought brand new Colorado mounts. I've already taken, so the factory Colorado mounts have these kind of pieces that bolt onto here that bolted onto the engine. I've taken those off because these are the current performance LT mounts, so these will go on here and that will mount to the L83 and put it where it needs to be. I haven't fully assembled those because there is a gap, so I'm going to need some washers or possibly cut those bolts down. I'll probably just do washers though. Let's see, I believe that is pretty much a good first video of this kind of V8 swap series, and I'll probably do another video just kind of showing me testing some things and assembling the motor. I didn't want to do any videos really on what I'm doing to the motor because that doesn't really relate to the actual swap, and there's probably 1,000 videos on pretty much any mod you can do to this engine. If you Google L83 cam swap, there's probably 100 videos. I know because I've watched a bunch of them just to basically figure out what I needed to do, what I wanted to buy, and kind of go from there. So that's pretty much it. Oh, another mod that I'm doing, you can see up there, that is the factory. That's the factory L83 intake manifold. When I put this together, I will be going to an L86, which is the 6.2 liter. I will be putting the L86 intake manifold and throttle body, and I'll be running the 6.2 intake as well. That way, I think it's good for about 10 extra horsepower, and it's not really that expensive. So I've decided to do that as well. I think that's good for now. Stay tuned for more videos in this series.